Hey guys, make sure you have open your Slavery in Carolina Colony guided notes so that way you could fill in the blanks as we go through it. Another good way to do it is to pause after each slide so you can fill in the blanks. But let's begin. So the headright system made the Lord's proprietors really wealthy because large families moved to our area and then were given large land. Because remember, the headright system gave you the amount of enough land for your big family. So people with big families were rewarded for having lots of people in their family. Most of the crops were labor intensive, meaning it took a lot of care in order for them to grow. And they needed a labor source to do this and work the cash crops like rice. So why did they have to bring in Africans? By the time Carolina was created, very few people were willing to be indentured servants. They realized that they did not care for the work, and the deal was not sweet enough in order to keep doing it. So they tried using Native Americans at first, but remember, in the Native American culture, women typically did the farming. So men were not used to farming the things that the Europeans wanted them to. So they eventually escaped outside of British control. This is a snapshot of the nation of Barbados. And Barbados is where we first encountered African slaves and had them come work on plantations in Carolina Colony. And other Africans came over on the Middle Passage, which is what the trip from Africa to the New World was called. And we'll learn more about the Middle Passage in a moment. So, as you can see, those are some images of, Africans journeying to the Middle Passage and then coming over and working in the colonies. Down there is a picture of the Triangle Trade, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. And then you can see how packed in Africans were on this Middle Passage. So once they came over from Africa, they were sold in Charlestown. It became one of the most important slave centers in the southern colonies. So why Africans? These African slaves had experience growing rice and other crops, which made them very valuable to the southern colonies. They had knowledge of tending cattle, and they were also used to harvest naval stores and lumber from the forests of Carolinas, which contributed to the thriving trade between Barbados and Britain. So the demand for African slaves continued to increase as English settlers continued to profit from growing and selling cash crops. The growing demand led for both rice and indigo and allowed them to grow more. And so they needed to import more slaves. In many areas of South Carolina, African slaves outnumbered the white settlers due to the amount of labor it took to work plantations. And so fear of slave rebellions grew in the areas with the greatest population imbalances. Carolina was home to very, very few freed Africans. But oftentimes, after the death of their owner or as a reward for their years of service, they were freed. Some could buy their freedom thanks to the money they earned with a special skill, and that could be basket weaving, or maybe they have like a more important responsibility on the plantation and they were paid to do this. But oftentimes, because these plantation owners did not want to do their own work, slaves were considered too valuable in order for them to be set free.